Look at all the amazing people he's had on this show. Like, I'm nobody.
False.
Fact, I am nobody, dude.
False. You are
I am
not
just
nobody.
a guy who shoots guns and does things. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, you're more than just a guy. More than just a guy. You are Steve Fisher, and I got you to come on to the. I don't know how I did it, but I got you to come on to the Iron Sights podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you,
dude.
man. It's a pleasure. Like, I love your show, dude. It's amazing. I love watching the people you have here. It's great. There's a lot of good dudes here that I ultimately respect, right? That have been here. And like we were talking beforehand, like the one guy you had on recently, Chris Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
Like Chris is an amazing human being. He puts information out great. He is the most matter-of-fact cat. And like, I have the utmost respect for that dude. He's an amazing human being. And I love that dude.
I echo the sentiments. I had the distinct, sort of opportunity to connect with him somehow, right? Like, and then he agreed to sit down with me. And when we did that, like, there was so much good feedback on that. Like,
imagine. None
None of it's bad, right? Nobody
no.
ever says anything bad about Chris. I mean, he'll laugh at that and would joke about himself in that sense. But at the same time, like, I appreciate that, man, and I appreciate you taking time out of all the things that are going on and all the things that you're doing. I know you're a very busy dude.
It's been a crazy SHOT Show this year, but like legitimately, like the dudes you have had on, like have been just rock stars, right? And like Chris is a cat who doesn't get enough play. Like that dude, if he really decided to do what he wants to do in this industry, like he is poised to make really big changes in it if he really puts it to it. Like that cat is amazing.
Yeah, like when I look at Chris and I look at leadership and I look at like who needs to be the voice or the face of things,
he's it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And he knows how to do that. I don't know if it's instinctual for him or if, it's just been learned process, but he's the guy you want in front of the crowd to give the message for a couple of reasons. One, because he's going to deliver it in a way that's that people appreciate. He just has a really good way of setting up not only the information, but if he's asked a question, just kind of setting up for context so that everybody's really clear on what he's about to say. Mm-hmm. Number two, the depth of knowledge, right?
Unbelievable.
I mean, it's wide, but it goes really deep with regard to his experience. True. And I think the last thing is what he's trying to do at the end is he'll tell you, like, this is where I'm coming from. Yeah. You may think differently, but this is where I'm coming from. And here's why. And take it or leave it. But I'm going to leave you with this question.
Yes. Chris is the kind of guy that you want being a leader of men.
Got it?
Like fact. Like 30 years ago, I would have loved to have been led by dudes like Chris. Mm. Like his, like you said, like his depth of knowledge is unbelievable. And he is just rock solid. He is solid across the board. He's even keeled and he will listen. He will have counters to it, but it's not like derogatory, right? He won't make you feel like you're stupid, so to speak, right? Like the man knows how to talk to people with a way that you respect. And even if you disagree, you will learn to agree with him.
Yeah, he challenges you.
Oh, it's beautiful.
To be better.
It is beautiful.
But speaking of that, like in leadership over 30 years ago, let's talk about you. That's why I wanted to have you on. I was just saying before we clicked on here that, hey, first off, if there was an interview I was intimidated at having and being nervous about it, it was you. Because there's a couple reasons. One, I have a tremendous amount of respect for you and how you handle your business. I love the no nonsense. This is who I am. Take me for who I am. If you don't like it, fine. I don't care.
That's it.
And the other part of it is the roots that you have. Because when I talk to other people about you, like not on air, but off air, everybody knows who Steve is, right? And those that know you. They're like, that dude is like the sweetest dude, right? That just cares about doing fun stuff in the right way with the right people and getting the message across. And, and I've asked questions and things like that. They're like, you just got to sit down and talk to them. So I made it. And you just mentioned something about leadership in the past 30 years. Yeah. I want to know about your past 30 years, dude. Man. I don't know a thing about you outside of what kind of other people say or what I get from like the Instagram. Because by the way, I'm pretty sure I can call them to find out. I think Guinness World Records probably has you as the most Instagram lives in the history of humankind. This guy's constantly on. So I get a lot of Steve in my life, but not in this way. So you get to start wherever you want, man.
It's interesting for me, right? Like this industry. And I tell guys, like what I did 30, 35 years ago doesn't matter today, right? Like certain things develop you, but like guys like, this industry is very toxic.
Mhm.
Right. It is tribalism. It is toxic. It is who did what, whatever it is. You're not important kind of thing. And I get that. Right? I tell people I'm a nobody. Right. I absolutely am. Comparatively to the dudes that I know and that I respect in this industry. Like I've never been a soft guy. I've never been this. I've never done this. I started out in a very early law enforcement career as a sheriff's department deputy. I worked corrections, started my way up. It's irrelevant when I was 20, right?
Okay.
I knew everything, right?
Of course.
Because we're 20 some years old, we know everything. Just
All of
ask
it.
us.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
ask us.
Right.
And then you get your quote unquote ass handed to you.
Yep.
You're like, well, I don't know anything about this anymore. And development through the years, I had a local training company like a lot of cats did early on. And then I was mentored very well early on by a guy named Pat Rogers, EAG Tactical. Pat was a guy who, like in 2004, took me under his wing for whatever reason.
Yeah, this is why. Like,
yeah,
how did this happen?
No idea, right? Like I showed up to a couple classes, shot a bunch of guns. I was already doing things I thought I knew stuff. I was like, I know nothing at this point, right? And that progressed, right? I've had some amazing friends through the years in this industry. I mean, Kyle Lamb, right? But like a whole bunch of dudes going up to the current modern guys like Joe Dawson, Bruiser Industries, who's an amazing human being. Mike Pannone is a buddy. He's a great human being. Chris Palmer, as we talked about, another dude. But you learn things through the years. So, I started with that job in life. Progressed through. I was hired by Magpul very early on.
Let's talk about that.
That was a great time. It's like, I was questioning that myself, right? Here I am as this dude who's teaching locally, some travel stuff at the time, fundamentals of shooting, basics of life, right? At that point. And then I had known Travis first through some other stuff. And then Chris, I had stopped at a course like Raven Concealment was sponsoring or what have you. And I'd stopped on there. Like I've known the Raven guys for a million years, amazing dudes. They started the Kydex revolution, so to speak. And we went down to this course in Indiana, and I like seeing dudes that I've taught, dudes that I've taken classes with. And Chris is like, hey, man, we need a third for this drill jump. And I'm like, I ain't got a gun. He's like, somebody give this man a gun, like pre-John Wick, like craziness. Jumped in on some drills, did some exercises, signed up, took another course with them at the time. And Chris had called me up and some of the guys like, hey, man, we're looking for somebody. I'm like, cool, I've got a list of dudes, man. There's some really good cats out there that would be a great fit. He's like, no, you idiot. I'm talking about you. I'm like, hey, dog, like, look, like, I get it. That would be awesome. I am not that dude. It's just not me.
What was the hesitation?
The hesitation for me was like originally like, I'm not sure I believe in what they're doing.
Good answer.
Like, I believe in the company, like Rich Fitzpatrick, awesome human being. Like they developed some great stuff. Him and his original guys, Drake Clark and all those guys, they did an awesome job. The little Magpul thingy and the mags and everything was starting to come up. I'm like, look, man, I'm a small dude. Like I just show up. I teach dudes locally and some travel stuff with people that I know. And this is what I do. He's like, no, man, like I saw you in the class. I saw what you did. Like there's some talent there. I was like, okay, let me think about this. Click.
Right.
I'm literally like, I will call you back next week, whatever. And I was like, all right, like, yeah, man, I'm gonna do this.
Why? Like, wow, what was the? You start with the hesitation, and then you think on it. What'd you think about?
I felt somewhere along the line there was a greater good that could be done.
Good answer.
Right. I mean, the guys were on top of the food chain, right? At the time, Magpul was the thing. Like videos were coming out. Like I grew up in an era of like gun sight, right? Like you taught the modern technique of pistol. You did this, Clint Smith, right? All these dudes, Bill Jeans, all these great guys that were leading the way. And as I was growing up to this, like, I'm almost 54. So like we were reading all the guns and ammo mags and everything else. And for me, it was like, wait a minute, I don't know if I want to be this cat, right? So you understood about all these people that were leading the thing, and there was really no training available that was like what we considered progressive, unless you had the creds to get behind the curtain, right? Like you were going to Mid-South or whatever, and all these other big shooting schools that were teaching performance shooting then. I was like, oh man, I don't know about this. I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Is this just like you're looking at this being this is really wild what they're doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. This is totally different than what we saw coming out of the old videos from like Paladin and Loki, where it was very much back in the 80s and 90s gun sight era stuff, which looking back today, like full circle, like everything that is being taught today was taught then. There's nothing new in this industry. Like there's only so many ways to grip a gun and press a trigger.
Right.
And I was like, man, I don't know if I don't know if I am ready for this. Like as a maturity level, going like, hey man, like I've only been doing this for 10, 12 years, right? Like I'm not 100%.
Okay, I'm going to time you out for a second. This
Go
is so interesting what I'm listening to, because that is so different than how everything's being handled now, which we'll get to, I'm sure. But this kind of like imposter syndrome type of thing.
Yes.
But also I wonder, and just the question in this is, I wonder if there was a fear of disrespecting that heritage that you've just spoken about, and whatnot, like that, if that came up for you,
man.
Yeah. So it's a different, and the reason I ask that is I think this probably sets up some other questions, and as we go down the line here, just regard with how things are going. But I know, so before I get you on that,
they're going to get there. I know we are.
Before we get on that topic, okay, please continue. So the phone call comes back. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this.
Right.
So I get the phone calls from everybody like, hey, we're gonna drag you up to this course in Washington. It's like a 5-day law enforcement package for a bunch of good dudes. I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm like, yeah, why not?
Guess we're doing
like,
this.
what do I pack for this?
Rock on.
Like, bring a rifle, bring a pistol, bring your kit, wear a black polo. We're good. I'm like, sure, whatever. It's like on the job training was like right now, like you are going to show up and you're going to put yourself on Front Street with a bunch of cats that are like solid dudes. I'm like, sure, why not do this? And I went for it, right? It's one of those gambles that I'm like, is there like, am I doing an injustice or disrespect kind of thing to those people that at the time we looked to? Because this was a whole new world. Like these guys were rock stars. Like the original video trailer for Magpul, where we see Chris and Travis doing a stroll around a barricade. That was the first time those two had ever been on a range together. When that happened, I was like, man, these guys are awesome. Like this rock star stuff. Like, yes, I want to be part of this. Then the phone call comes in, a year or two later. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I want to be a part of this anymore. And dudes that had mentored me and that had driven me for a while were like, hey man, do it.
Okay.
Like I had talked to Pat, I had talked to other guys, and like, yeah, man, you should do this. You could make a certain difference in things. Not that it would be like amazing, but like you're going to be able to ground some people on things. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. So I signed a dotted line. There I was, and it was an amazing time to be a part of, right? Because that was like what everybody kind of says today, like it was like the revolution of training again, right? There's videos, these guys are amazing. There's production quality. Like I was scared shitless.
It was the dawn of a new era.
Yeah, it really truly was. And it's like, I think that time frame, like I talk to a lot of kids now, right? I say kids, they're like, hey man, we remember watching these DVDs when we were deployed or we were doing this. And like, and there's cats now who are like big Instagram influencers and stuff that I've had as students who remember watching these videos. Like I was in Washington State a while back doing a gig, like I had Mil-Spec Mojo, right? Like great cat, super fast, awesome dude. Him and his boss came into a course that I was teaching. And it was crazy to have the conversation with this dude. He's like, man, we watched this stuff in 2010 when we were deployed and we were doing this. I'm like, God, I feel old.
Yeah.
And I hope you don't hold it against me. Because I mean, like, honestly, there was things in that program I would not teach. There was things I did not believe in. And when the opportunity arose during the change, like Travis had left, Chris was leaving, Magpul was coming on with some new people like Dwayne Liptak, who's an amazing, great dude, like fighter pilot, like straight up Martin Baker time injection, like great human being, another great leader of dudes. And like, we were like, man, what's going to happen now? But, like me and Dwayne had taught some classes. I was able to bring a buddy of mine in who was a former like 5th group cat who's awesome and like who hated that era. He's like, I hate those guys. I'm like, hey, dog, it's going to be you and me shooting guns. He's like, oh, I can do that. And now he's like, he's very much in like the top realm of the people there. He's a great design guy and brilliant thinker, awesome shooter. But it was a very scary, weird time for me.
Okay, so go back real quick to there were things that you didn't agree with and you wouldn't teach. Yeah. So, I mean, were these principal things or were these just more nuanced things that you're just like, we could leave that out and this will be just fine?
Yeah.
Was it more?
There were nuancy things. Right? Like, I was never the mag flip guy. Like I never subscribed to like gravity's a real thing. It's been around for like push the button, magazine falls out, put a magazine in. If the magazine doesn't come out when you push the button, you rip it out, you go down, you put a new mag in a gun, right? Basic fundamentals of stuff. But I was never a mag flip guy. And that actually, as I understood it, was a byproduct byproduct of chamber checking things. I'm like, I can't chamber check in a dark dog. It doesn't work for me, you know? It doesn't work under nods. It doesn't do this. But it was the era, right? It was the era of flash. It was the era of let's make this sexy again, but let's make it solid. And while I understood that, I was like, man, I am so driven in the old school ways of doing things. Like, this has worked for me for 100 years. Like, why wouldn't I just do this? It was a beautiful time, though. It really was. Like, the whole entire crew at Magpul was amazing, from the girls that maintained us and handled us with all our travel and everything, to actually being there during product testing, development, design. It was great. It was an awesome time to be a part of. And it's kind of like I tell guys, they ask, like, wow, I fell in at the right time in the right place. It's like, ultimately, when you look at
like
life,
most things in life, timing has a lot to do.
Timing is it. Luck is a lot of it. Opportunity, take it, seize it, and go for it. And that was the beauty of it. And then, that went away, obviously, going into the 2014 era. The direction was changing. And I was like, man, I've got like 20-some days till SHOT Show. I'm like, I've got to start all over again. But the beauty of that was building relationships along the way. Right, even prior to Magpul, and then through the Magpul era, obviously, that was a very easy thing, right? Like, it's like, hey, what do you need? What do you want? And then realizing at that point in time, I was in a position to start helping others that were up and coming. Right, and that was the big thing for
passing
me.
Passing
the baton, truth. And there's been good and bad in that. There's a lot of dudes that are snakes. There's a lot of people that have backstabbed along the way, like anything else in life. There's a lot of shit talkers.
So
they're here.
Yes. So yes, for sure. I wonder, so just going to go back to, again, the 10 years prior and even like your experience. Had you experienced that before this time?
No.
Okay. So I'm sure the way you're handling it is the way you were handled by those guys previous. And what you were seeing was what? Outside of the backstabbers and the snakes and all that stuff, what was different?
Man, that's hard. There was a lot of things thrown at you, right? Like, you were the most popular prom date kind of opportunity in school, right? So to speak.
Rock star.
It was like you were either the captain of the football team, you were the prom queen, you were in this era of things that, like, you could do no wrong, which was wrong. Because we could do wrong, and we did wrong, or what we felt was wrong. But no matter what, here you were. Like, you were on top of this thing. Like, and while I was like I tell guys, like, I'm third fiddle to Chris and Travis right at this point in time. Like, my job is to sit back, do what I do, help people along, guide, coach, instruct, do whatever. But, like, it was weird being in those shoes, right? Because I was just a dude,
right?
From Michigan, that had, what have you. But it was a very crazy time with that. And you could do no wrong, so to speak. Like you learned about, at that time, the internet was very popular, right? Like,
Magpul had figured it out.
Oh yeah. Like it was amazing. But it's like videos, DVDs, products. You're always in the spotlight, so you had to maintain a certain thing. And the problem with that became is, like, you had to understand not to be angry, because you would see the internet fights, right? Like forums were big before, obviously, IG, Facebook pages, groups, and stuff like that, and Discord and whatever else is going on these days. But like there would be angry moments on, like, ARFCOM, because that was the big hub, right? Oh, these guys, it's like you wanted to just engage and get very angry about things,
and you had to keep it to yourself because of the representing the company.
There was a lot of that, and there was times. You just like, hey, man, like, you needed to say something. If you didn't, you were going to explode about things. And understanding that ego, like, and that was a problem. And I've told you this, and I've spoken about it.
It is.
Right. Like, fact, right? Like 100%. Like, I told guys, like, hey, man, there was a time and place where that was very easy to get out of control. You're young, you're aggressive, you're on top of the world at this point. Like, ego was very real, in the attitude that went with it. And there's a difference between an ego and confidence. And separating those is really hard.
Right.
And, like, I stepped back.
That's adult man shit.
Fact. Right. And, like, about a year into that program, I was like, man, I don't want to be that cat. Like, I don't want to be that dude. I just want to do my job. I want to help people. I want to make cats better. And that's it. I don't want to be that guy that's here like, oh, look at us, or look at this, or whatever it was. And it's not a dig against Chris or Travis or anybody there. So it's nothing like that. But it was like, I don't want that. Like, I don't want to be that guy. And there is a degree of the confidence that you have to have when you're in front of the world. And that was a problem.
So it sounds like, I mean, let's go back to the imposter syndrome, but it
Sure.
also sounds like you kind of went into it in a different place. And as you're going through, your persona
Yes.
that's being put out there is somewhat false.
Yeah. It absolutely can be, right? Because you're this guy and you tell me, like, I don't do anything. I'm a nobody, man. I'm just a guy who knows how to do this with guns really well at this time frame. I've never been a cool kid, but here we are.
And that's your identity now, publicly.
Yes. Yes.
Were you attached to that, or did you know this is not my identity, but I've gotten myself so far down this road right now.
There it is.
I don't know how to walk back.
You tried to manage it, right? Like you really did. And that was a very hard place. You're 30 some odd years old.
Yeah.
You're here, and that's a very easy thing to fall into and a very easy trap to get into. And you try to step back and you try to separate things. And when like you get that gut check from a buddy, right? He's like, hey, bro. You're like, yeah, man, I see it. I've been figuring it out.
Who did that?
Dude who's a nobody.
Yeah.
Like nobody would know who this cat is ever in the world. He's just a very good dude. And he's like,
hey, bud.
Yeah, like, hey, bro, like we're seeing things.
It's not cool.
Like absolutely not.
Or what the hell's going on?
Bingo.
What the fuck's up with you, man?
Yeah, like you needed the punch in the mouth, right? Like, so to speak, like you needed your buddy to come over and gut check you and like punch you right in the face. And I did.
That's
right.
Like
I took right here in the jaw, hit it, get it over with. And that changed for a while, and that was awesome. And then like, the whole change came, right? Like it was time to change regimes. Everything changed at Magpul. The training thing had changed. Now like you're back on your own. And here we are. Like you're starting all over from scratch, and you're like, I was nobody without that identity, which is a very hard thing for people to separate and realize, and especially in this industry, right? Because people are attached to names and programs and companies. And that was a very real moment in life when you go like, I'm a nobody again.
Who am I?
Who am I now, right? And then you realize you're that guy that you always were before. Yeah. Like, and that's the person to be, right? And that's what you try to change during the early on phase of it, right? When you realize things are like spiraling to a degree. You're like, I just need to be the dude I was. Like, because in the end of the day, we all put our shoes and socks on the same way in our pants. Other people will always know more than you. There will be somebody better than you. There was somebody faster than you. There was somebody smarter than you. And here we are. Like you were part of a program. You were part of a name. You had that identity to pseudo like kind of hide behind. And there's cats in this industry that are like instructors nowadays that are like good dudes that I remember who were students during those programs that are amazing dudes, SWAT cops, operators. Like we are friends to this day. And we've had this talk. Like I've been gut checked by them. Like one of the dudes, like Bill Blowers.
Yep.
Bill's an amazing human being.
I've not met Bill, but only good things come up.
Yeah, great dude. Like, and I remember like stuff like, and me and Bill have had that man talk over the years. Like, and Bill is a great human being as well that I have a lot of respect for. Just an amazing human. And like bro mode, like talks like when like, hey dude, like so that's
real talk
that you need to have, that dudes need to have, that they don't get enough of. And that was great. And I was surprised at the response with companies and manufacturers when I went out on my own. I mean, I've been friends with like Paul Buffoni from BCM for a million years. Like Paul has been a great human being in my life for a long time. Great dude. And I had already been working with a couple of companies, like, some little stuff with EOTech or Trigicon in that era. Then it just kept going, and it just kept marching on. And here we are.
You just flash forwarded a lot, but that was...
Sorry.
No,
I'll stop.
Don't apologize at all.
I'll just...
that satisfied the curiosity quite a bit on a lot of things. I still have a bit left, but
we're here.
Yeah, the transition, the identity piece.
Yeah,
it's so interesting. I just had this conversation with Scott Peterson.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've had an opportunity to meet or hang out with Scott at all. But he's right in the middle of the transition right now. And he's watched a lot of other people go through it. I think he has a really good handle on what's up. And it was that episode will come out, at some point down the road. But I think the question around identity and what people latch onto, who they were versus who they are now. And, for a while, you were doing it in a much different way, but it is much the same type of transition that somebody that's coming, that I'm watching entry into the space happen from so many other people, and it's the same. It's like a formula,
horrible, right?
It's like a formula, and and it's not like, oh, these guys are so dumb because it's that. No, you have to go through it to understand it. And I know it's like a train wreck. It's like watching that thing happen. And it's going, oh, please don't do that. So that was the refreshing thing about my conversation with Scott. As I'm looking at him, and he's just going, man, I have no idea how this is going to work out. But here's what I know. I do know. I know who I am, and I know my name. Right. And that's what I got to latch onto. And I got to figure this out as I go. And I'll just flat out say, I don't know. I'm not that guy. I just know how to do this.
Right.
And that's what I'm going to do. That's what you're saying you had to get back to.
The identity thing is kind of a real thing, right? Like when you talk about this industry stuff that's going on, like I call it the Al Bundy syndrome.
Yeah.
Like, hey, man, I scored 4 touchdowns at Polk High in one game, right?
Yeah,
we're still talking about it to this day, bro. Like 40 years ago doesn't matter.
Right, yeah.
That is part of what you were. It is not who you are now.
Right.
And that's a hard part. And it's like I tell guys about that, like, that is a great analogy on things, right? Because it's true. It started our process, but it's not who we are today.
Mm-hmm.
Like that started a process.
So as you navigated through that process, what was the hardest part? Because what you just said was there were some good things, like you had built relationships and you were building more. There's a lot of good in this, but what was the toughest part kind of coming out? Just knowing what to do first? Was it, talk to me about it. I don't want to preload this.
It was pretty hard, right? Like, so, like you're trying to find a company name, a logo, right? All the usual stuff,
all the
business stuff, right? And that's a nightmare to have. Luckily, I had some really good friends within the industry that helped with that. Like, hey man, you got 20 days, dog. Like, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I'm going to the SHOT Show.
You mean 20 days between the time that you left Magpul to the time SHOT Show starts?
About that, like 20 to 30 day window. I'm like, what am I going to do?
It's a lot of pressure.
Like, this is bad, right? Yeah. And luckily, I had some really good people help me navigate that space, and so that was solid. But the identity changed. Like here you are, you're alone. Mm-hmm. You're basically feeling like the new kid again. Mm-hmm. You're like, how is this going to be? Like, how are people going to respond to it? Right? Yeah, and how are they going to receive me? Like, are you somebody without the name? Are you somebody without the backing of a powerhouse? And that was a very frightening time.
Daunting.
It's very daunting. I'm like, oh boy, I hope this works. If not, I'm going to be a door greeter at Walmart at this point or something. Like, hi, my name's Steve. How are you? Tools are in aisle 8. That kind of thing. But this is the stuff that goes through your head, right? You don't know. I'm like, man, I'm going to go back to culinary school. I'm going to open up a bistro or something. I don't know how this is going to work at all. It was a very scary, scary time for me. And I think a lot of people, right, have had these daunting, like, task moments in life, but it's where it was. And I just said, you know what? I've just got to put my head down and go. I've got to be humble. I have to have enough confidence / borderline conceit, arrogance to be there. You have to have the right amount of humor / how to insult people correctly without them thinking it's bad. Like, just all this, but like, it was good. Like the response that I had from companies that I had supported or helped in other times, don't burn the bridges unless you can afford to burn the bridge, right? That's the big thing. And it was good. Like, it was pretty overwhelming. There was companies that approached me like, hey man, like, we saw you shooting our guns. I'm like, yeah, I bought a couple whenever it was because I liked it, man. It was nice, like, would you be interested? Or would you be interested in this? So that was kind of a cool thing, right? I was like, okay, this isn't so bad. I can breathe again, right? I'll probably make do for a couple of years. And then I realized, like, this entire industry is chess.
Yeah, it's chess, not checkers.
Fact, right? And you're trying to, like, you try to find the patterns. And a lot of things came about with that. And it was pretty good. Like, there's some good dudes in the background that, people have asked, like, how is he still here?
Yeah, I imagine.
And dudes are like, hey man, like, he's read the trends. Like, he's been around long enough. He knows not to burn these bridges, do these things, support the good people, help others, no matter how many times he's been stepped on with it. But like, he's still going to do this because that's where he came from, because somebody helped him get there. Mm-hmm. And that's just the game.
So you're trying to pass on.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Let's talk about the game.
The game.
Let's talk about the game. And I pitched the question before, just with regard to, like, what was the difference then versus now? You sort of I think I maybe even preloaded the answer. And then the question I had, though, and because I think it sets that I didn't ask, I think sets up this next part of this conversation is the guys that were coming in that were being shitheads.
Yeah.
Right. Knowingly or unknowingly. Right. Where were they coming from? Who were these guys? I don't mean by name, but
Sure.
who were they?
They were like a lot of other people, right? They were average earth dwellers that found a niche, right? They were guys that were either really fast on the gun.
Okay.
They had like paper grandmaster statuses, but never like went out and put it against anybody, which is good on them for even achieving that. Because I'm not that cat anymore. Like I have no desire to be that dude. But there were guys that were coming into it that saw it, and I think saw a way to make a buck. Okay. Not so much to make a difference, but later on kind of develop that, right? That they could make a difference in certain things. Their ego got the best of them. And I remember those days, right? And I had tried to talk to them about, no, it's this. Carry on.
Right.
Like, and they will be the first ones that you helped or guided to talk trash and try to dethrone or whatever they want to call it. I don't even care anymore at this point in life, but it was a very real thing. It was very hurt. Really, like it hurt, right? Like seventh grade girlfriend hurt. Like you're like, hey man, like this was bad. Like why did you do this kind of thing? But then you realize, I got it, right? I understand it. And you see it now, and you're like, oh, I see where you're going with this.
So yeah, I do. So I understand that one well. I watched that happen, sort of in sort of some business relationships that Cece and I had in our time in the last few years. Just people we went way out of the way for, and cared for when times were really rough for them or whatever else, and tried to support even when times were good. We supported them. I mean, we're talking like kids' birthdays and soccer games and shit like that. And it's really interesting to see what happens when people get squeezed. And I've used this a few times this week. Just what happens when you squeeze a person, and what comes out when they start to feel a little bit pressured. Or I think the bigger thing is like they feel a little discomfort, and maybe that discomfort comes from pressure that's being put on them externally.
Sure.
Or it comes internally with recognizing the fact that they are being a piece of shit. Yeah. And they don't know how to say, I'm being a piece of shit. Yeah. And nobody else, and I'm not even saying that to them, but they have already done things.
They know.
And they've done things that are going to be really hard, even if they wanted to walk back on. So I think I can relate to that. And what I can really relate to is just this deep, gut punch to like, what in the hell? And then dealing with all the things that come with that. And so for me,
there's a third order effect involved.
That's it. I was fucking angry, Steve.
Angry
to the point where like, if I see you on the street,
I want to choke you.
I'll probably go to jail.
Yeah.
Like not physically put my hands on you, but because somebody's going to call the police because there's a fucking angry dude yelling at somebody out on the street, and I'm afraid he's going to kill him. That kind of thing. It was bad. Like I had to wrestle with that. I still deal with that. I'm still angry about it.
There's nights I can't sleep over certain things, right?
So I hear what you're saying with regard to I don't care anymore. But I'm going to call you on your bullshit, Steve.
Oh, no, I still care.
That's
Don't get me
bullshit.
wrong. It's bullshit.
I already picked that up about you, man. Like, you do care, and that's why this is what it is. That's why we're talking about it.
And this is part of it, right? Like we're probably jumping ahead here a little bit, but it's your show. I'm just here. So, like I tell people, like, I've had my dark days. Like, I have had my darkness in this job, in this industry, and other things, and I'm no angel, and I'm not innocent.
Right.
But there's still some dudes that like to put a blade in their ribs.
Yeah, sure.
Like fact.
Yeah, I think that's a very natural way to feel. And I only say that I say all of that, I guess, to say, I fucking get it. And I get that.
It hurts. Like, it's personal, right? There's times where it hurts. It is personal.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're seeing and it being, I guess, just put out there on the airwaves in a couple of different ways. One is you're recognizing guys, and that guys recognize that they're hurt by it, and they're wrestling, and they're trying to figure out their own way, and they going back to like the chat rooms or whatever, and they're not wanting to jump in, but occasionally you're just sitting there on a Saturday night, and you're going, this mother, right? And then it's just you light up, and then it kind of takes you down that path, but that becomes a little less and less, and they're doing it a little less, and they're having a little bit of a different conversation, but there's still a lot of bitterness.
There was something that resonated with me, right? Like I thought back to some things that were going on in the world at those point in times, and hearings and all this stuff. And I remember something that was said, and it was basically like, those that anger you control you. I was like, Truth. Yes, they do. But I can't let them. But they do. And that is a very real statement that the people that anger you control you, and they will drive certain things in you, and you can't let that happen.
Yeah, somebody shared this with me the other day. Ex-Marine sniper guy who's local to us, and I think the quote is, I could be wrong about this, but it's rage is the shield of fear.
Yes,
and or something to that effect, or grief. So, and I think it's either one of the two, but it's like there's a sadness there. It's like, God dang it, why does this have to be like this at a lot of levels? Like, dude, like you didn't have to do this, and now we're doing this together, and I'm upset that we're even doing it. It didn't have to be like that. To also the like, what does this mean? Like fear, like how am I going to respond to this? Should I? How does that impact me if I do? How does it impact me if I don't? I think there's a lot of that. And, people could be listening to this right now and just going, these fucking guys.
Nobody cares what they think. Talk about guns or something. Like, nobody cares about guns.
Totally.
Guns are stupid.
But I think but I mean, I'm going to ask you about some guns here in a minute. Yeah. But the part of this is, and this is where I see coming out, from you, and I think people know you to do that is to go ahead and make a comment and give your piece on what you think is happening. And we started that. And what I wanted to know is where it's coming from.
Right.
And, you say like you're coming at it with maybe a different affect that people maybe have a tough time reading. And again, you're a beast of a dude. And I know I'm not the first person to tell you that, but I just mean that in every kind of way. The things that you've done, the things that you're doing, who you are, there's a lot more to talk about here, but and how you handle your business. But ultimately it's because you give a shit.
Yeah.
Right. It's not because you want to talk shit.
Yeah.
Well, maybe sometimes
a little bit, right?
Maybe
Every now
sometimes
and
it
then.
is. But I think it's because you give a shit. And anyhow, I think a lot of the people that we've had on here that have been caught up, or been criticized for being toxic or, whatever, I think it really is because they care that much.
We do.
And again, some people would be looking at this as like, all right, this guy came pretty fast, but at the same time, like I would not have you on, I would not be having a conversation if I didn't believe some amount of that to be true. Yeah. And you are validating that my gut, and my sort of my heart in that sense are right. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And I just got an opportunity to call Steve on his bullshit right here.
He did. Totally. So. I'm like, I'm just done now. I'm leaving.
so
I'm going home.
Anyhow, that said, yeah. So moving on, like you've been able to build and be so influential, and I know people hate that term. I do too, but that wasn't a dirty word. It was a very complimentary word until very recently, in terms of the dawn of the digital media and social media age. You've been very influential in the industry. We already talked about Magpul.
Yeah.
And I mean, bottom line, if you don't know about those, then
you haven't been around.
You're not paying attention. Right? You got a little bit more, a little bit more time you need to spend here. That said, there's a lot of other things that you're doing, and so we're talking about, we're at SHOT Show.
Yeah.
And, before some of the things I hear you talking about on a regular basis, before we came, it was probably 2 weeks ago, you were talking about a new optic, and that you were part of a development program. And, you were part of product development and testing, in a previous life, right? I want to talk about that a little bit and kind of what's going on there to help me understand, which I think will help other people understand how a product goes through that development process, how it comes to market, and why people do certain things that they do, because it's very overwhelming. I mean, all you got to do is walk downstairs and walk out onto the thing.
It's crazy, right?
Fucking wild, right? It's wild. There's no shortage of products.
No, absolutely not. Like I tell guys in this industry, there's nothing new. It's all been done before. It's
very redundant.
It's redundant. It's a new skin. It's a new cut. It's something whatever that's a minor change, right? Like people used to laugh way back in the day, like in the 80s era, into the 90s. Smith & Wesson had a gun of the day kind of thing, gun of the month, right? Like we have a new gun this week. Well,
that
cool.
Fast.
It's blue. It's stainless. It's a double action only. It's a single. It doesn't matter, right? It's that's how like certain companies are today. But being able to be on the backside of those things, right, and being inside the shop, right? Like, and I've worked with some amazing companies over the years, and some amazing engineers, and just some great people. And ultimately they all circle around. You all come back to each other, right?
Okay.
It's like every 3 to 5 years, it seems like somebody goes
Oh,
somewhere
it's
else.
very incestuous, man.
Yeah, totally. Like that's why I tell guys don't burn bridges, because like in 3 years that dude will be your boss somewhere else. Like unless you can afford to burn that bridge or swim, don't do it. Like just don't. And there's graceful ways to do such things without doing it. But getting on the backside of that, when guys are like, "Hey, we've got $5 million to spend, and we're going to do this," you're like, "Sure."
And they want you to help them spend their money,
right? Or at least like help us through the process so we're not wasting the money. And not everything has always been successful, right? Like there's always something you see that looks great now, but it's ahead of its time or it's too late for its time. Like nothing is perfect. I remember years ago with a certain company talking about some of their ad space and product development, like your baby is ugly.
Yep.
That didn't go well.
That's a tough one to take,
That
man.
did not go well.
You got an ugly kid.
Yeah, like fact, like your baby is really ugly, but it could be better.
Yep.
You know, here that didn't sit well, right? Like the VP is like, "Oh, God, this guy." Like it's the truth, though. Like this does not work this way.
Don't call me if you don't want that. Yeah.
Here's your honest answer. Your baby is ugly. We can make it better, but you need to listen, or your people need to listen. I'm not an engineer. I don't have an umpteen-year degree. I'm not the smartest kid in the room, right?
If they called you for a reason.
Sometimes not. Like not to hear that, but more validation at times. You're not going to give that to them ultimately. So it's interesting to get behind the scenes. A lot of times it's been like, we've already designed a product. So like, here you go. What do you think about it? I'm like, you should have called us 2 years ago.
Oh, I love this conversation.
Oh, yeah,
They want you to validate their piece of shit.
I'm like, that's cool and all. It works. It does a thing, but that's not how I probably would have approached this problem, because I already know what demographic you're going after with this, or like what program is coming up or what selection. Like that's not the way it's going to happen, and it's not cool. They're like, "Oh, but this does this." I'm like, okay, I'll tell you exactly what you want to hear. Not
right.
Yeah, man. Sorry about your bad luck. That's great. I hope the check cash is still. But being like on a ground level, when the companies that really care are like, "Hey, we're starting this from scratch. We'd like you to sit in on it. We'd like you to give your honest thoughts." I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And whys. Like the important part of this whole thing is whys. Like even for us, ourselves, right? Like we can lose our whys. Company can lose those whys. But it's here we are. And why do we need to do this? What is it solving? Like so on and so forth. So we get into that level of meetings, right? And then you come back, and then you're into like the rapid printed prototypes, and then you're into this, and it's a progression of things. And you're like, oh man, I hope this works. This is really damn cool. You know, and there
occasionally,
occasionally it is. But like today, like they're getting better about it, right? And the guys that
you mean product development,
yes, and the guys that are doing this thing are starting to take notice of the people that are in the spaces. And they're like, well, we should talk to them first before we invest umpteen $1 million into this project that's going to maybe come out in 3 years, right before anybody even sees it, or 2 years, or whatever the timeline may be. And it's better now than it was 10, 15 years ago in this space. Like their understanding of technology is a part of it, right? Because they can rapid prototype things. They can do working like mock-ups of stuff now. And that's great. So we get to get a real feel for it immediately, and then go, okay, what do we need to change? What needs to happen here? And that's been the good part the past couple, I'll say three to 4 years. There's a couple products on the show floor today that I was involved in pretty heavily over the past year and a half, and it's been nice to see. And you
come
sit
to
back,
fruition.
yeah, and you're like, yeah, and you get text messages from guys like, "Hey, did you see this or that?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, man, that looked pretty cool." And you wait, and then they hit you back like 3-4 days later in the show, like, "Oh, so we saw you on video, like doing something with these guys." Like, yeah, man, that was my baby, or I was part of that program that made that kid. So that's been pretty unique. It's been kind of nice to see him be recognized in that space with a lot of these companies and engineers and development programs.
I think the product development also, there has to have been times, along the way where you put out the product and maybe one or two things happens. One, you have a really good product, and you have a really shitty marketing department, or somebody blows a relationship or something like that.
Yes.
Or you have a really good product, or think you have a really good product, and it, for whatever reason, it doesn't do well. And that could be because of the second part, right? Which is it was very poorly played, or somebody messed this up.
Or often it's also the timing is off.
Okay, so let's talk about
timing is key in this industry, right? Like you watch the trends, right? You can be like, so evil black guns, right? ARs, right? ARs, right? It's never going to go away. That's great. Like, why are you developing another AR that is the same gun since the 1960s? Yep. Like, I can take a 1960s stoner designed Colt, whatever, do the pink conversion, slap it on a today's Sons of Liberty gun, right? Mm-hmm. Like, the only thing that has changed ultimately is a metallurgy. Mm-hmm. Some of the technology as far as barrels go, gas systems, like it's minor tweaks, but like, this is the most amazing. Like, stop it. You're on the internet. It's nothing special, man. Like, stop it. Like striker fired guns, right? Like Glocks. I mean, it was like, this is amazing. Like, yeah, Browning had this in like 1903 and Walther had it in the 18. Like, this is not new, man. Like, we're just
new for you. Yeah.
There's the answer, right? Yeah. It's new for you because you're 20 years old. Here you are. Mm-hmm. This is all old history. And that's the thing about this industry. Like, nothing is new. There's zero in development that is new. Nothing.
So is there coming out, like you go down there on the floor, and again, we just talked about this, so redundant. Sure. Like, it's wild. I mean, you go down there and I just look around and I go, look at all the money, time, effort, R&D, marketing, literally the millions of dollars just in booth space, right, down there that the NSSF has collected.
Yes.
Right, and all of that. And for what? Like, is there really that much pie?
No.
What is really going on out there? So let's talk about that, because I see all of this going on out there. Everybody's competing effectively for the same customer, right? But to your point, like, what are you really doing differently? What is the difference between being successful and not being successful with something like that, like a new optic or a new AR, a new rifle? What is the difference?
There isn't. I mean, the difference between a successful product and a good product, right?
Let's talk about that.
There's a legit difference, right? Like, successful product is this good product. People don't quite get that in terms, but like, what's so good about it? What makes it successful? Right? Like, what role does it fill? What gaps does it take care of? How is it going to help somebody along the way? Or whatever the cases are, right? All those little things, but there just isn't, right? There isn't anything that does anything different today that we didn't have 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago, right? A pistol's a pistol.
So I see people reaching, right? Or
yes.
So seemingly I see them reaching, but I'm also very new. I'm a baby. I'm an infant in this whole thing. It's a flavor
in
the big scheme of things.
What is your favorite bourbon?
So I have so many, like, I don't exactly.
This is why you have a vault full of guns, right? Like all of us, right? This is why we all have a safe. Like, you get this. This is great. New shiny thing. This is great. This is the
like
best
that too.
one.
Yeah.
That's it. Buy what you want. Shoot what you want. Nobody cares because it's not making that big a difference, man. Everybody's got a good trigger. Everybody's got this new grip thing. Everybody's
true.
Like, it's the same thing.
True. So I see where people want to stand out if they have like they haven't already a product out there that's really good. Right. It's the rifle, right?
Right.
And so they come up with this thing that, whatever it is, it's a new mount, it's a new rail, it's a new something, it's a new piece of furniture that goes on the thing, right? And they're not trying to sell that as the main thing. They're just going, hey, we came up with this thing, we really like it.
Right.
I have the money as a product or owner or whatever, or sorry, as a company owner to develop this product. That's what I want to do, and that's why I'm doing it. I'm not trying to make it like this is the next biggest thing on the face of the earth. This is just something that I'm proud of and I like to do. Yeah. Cool, more power to you. Now there's another part of this, and that is the stuff that is seemingly attempting to solve a problem that does not fucking exist. And selling it, a lot of them. Right, a lot of them. And again, I'm like, for me, and I'm just the curious person that's just like, I look at something, I'm going, because I understand the basics. Yeah. I do a pretty good job at understanding the basics. That's my thing. That's what's important for me. Understand the basics. Then we can build on that. But I'm looking at something, I'm looking at it and I go, okay, I understand the basics, and this isn't making a lot of sense to me. But there's obviously this guy could know something that I don't know. He might know way more than I know, but I hear and see everybody else going,
is it for you?
Yeah.
Needs and wants.
Yeah. So, and how do I determine this? Because this is brand new. This is like mind blowing. Like,
it's not going to make you a better shooter, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
I have news for you.
Yeah.
Your fundamentals still suck.
I learned that early on.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
early on.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a lot like training. Right, in the industry space. It's like everybody has a flavor. Everybody has a personality.
Yeah.
Like somebody may like, a Taurus or whoever, whatever Smith, a Glock, doesn't matter. Like whoever, like cool, do you, man? Like, I don't have to validate your purchase. Like, I don't care. Can you use it? That's all I care about. Like, I care nothing about what you do with it, why you bought it. Like, so why do you like it? Well, it doesn't. Like, I really don't care. I'm just asking you why,
Right.
like, it doesn't matter to me. Like, can you use it? Does it fit you? Does it work for you? That's the only answer that matters. Do you like this? Yes. Did you spend your hard-earned money? Yes. Sweet.
Right.
I do not care. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect my bottom line. It doesn't affect my sleep, which is nil anyways. But as long as you're content with it, you're happy with it, and you bought it because you liked it and you wanted it, it's not me to judge, man.
Good answer.
Facts.
Yeah,
it's not it, right? Like, it's just not.
Yeah, so I see a lot of people getting their panties in a wad just about what other people are doing all the time.
Oh, man.
And what they're, this thing, and it looks like this, and why are they doing that? And it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to think that the consumer, right? I've said this before. My faith in humanity is challenged quite frequently, but I like to think that the consumer ultimately is going to figure this out.
Yeah.
Now, if they made a $600 mistake, that's on them, right?
And you sell it and buy another one,
right? Or do whatever,
right?
That's on you.
Yeah.
And how many of those are they going to make before they start thinking a little bit differently about the purchasing decisions that they make, right?
Yeah.
For all the different reasons that people make purchases.
Sure.
So
just because your latest influencer likes it and uses it, you have to ask yourself, like, hey, that guy's really good. He's this, he's that, or whatever. She's really great at this, and so on. Like, ask them what they were doing like 7 months ago before that company was paying them with what gun, and can they do the same exact thing because they were doing it 7 months, a year ago with a gun before they were found or introduced or purchased, and it's not a shill thing. It's like everybody has a deal and everybody's got to eat. But it's like, yeah, man, they were doing the same thing with XYZ pistol before ABC company bought them, like, and it owns them and pays them. Like, it's not necessarily the gun.
Yeah, it's kind of like the professional athlete.
Yeah.
Right? Like, like today he's on the 49ers and tomorrow he could be on the Raiders. Right? Literally tomorrow. So it's not the uniform he's wearing or whatever.
It's the heart and it's the person, the time they put in to do that.
Yeah, it's what's under the hood. And understanding a little bit of the history and also understanding the business, which, again, this is part of the, why I wanted to talk to you, is because you understand that part of the business a lot more than I think most people do. I think the other part of it is like people have a false sense of confidence with how they perceive that process that you just talked about to be working. And with that, it also comes, like, as you said, things are moving very rapidly right now.
Very rapidly.
Breakneck speed. Right?
Crazy talk with technology. And this is kind of one of the things I talk about the guys, like, well, you've worked for XYZ or ABC company. They're like, yeah, I'll go in and work a program for company A, B, C, or D over, 3 years, 2 years, whatever.
Yeah.
You move on. Contract's over. It's time to go. It's business. It's not personal. Like, I've worked with some amazing companies, right? FN, BCM, Midwest, Knights Armament, Sons of Liberty. Like, we've done these contracts over the years, like awesome stuff. We were all friends to this day because it's like you can tell when the dudes that you have worked with care, right? Because they're like, hey, man, do you have time to talk? You're like, oh, here it comes, right? Like the program is over. These things are changing. Like, cool. You're like, yeah, man, what's up? Like, so, hey, I'm like, look, we've been buddies for a decade, bro. Like, just say it. Like, this is all it is, man. It's not like I'm not going to send you a Christmas card anymore and not see you, right? Like, like, it's purely business. And dudes take that to, like, they're sensitive, right? It's one of those things where, like, I don't know why they don't like me anymore. Like, it's not about that, dude. This is just purely a business.
You just nailed it with the people part, right? And so people are not developing those relationships; they are buying into relationships.
There it is.
And the customer or the consumer on the outside is making a lot of assumptions about that, and they're not maybe seeing that. And obviously, I think that creates a lot of drama. Like,
it does.
There's a lot of misunderstanding, and because of that, there's a lot of misdirected energy.
Sure. And
so that's kind of what you see. And I mean, we alluded to that, and we don't have to get deep into it. But
it's like that. Like, I get a lot of questions, right? Like everybody else does, Instagram, whatever. And they're like, so what's the carbine I should buy? What should I? You've worked with it. I'm like, hey, man, what can you afford? What can you afford without taking away from food for your family, not missing car payment, whatever it is? Like, what can you afford? What do you need it to do? What does this have to do differently than the other 5 you own?
Right. Like, why do you need this?
Yeah. I tell guys, like, you buy what you want to buy, but I'm asking you, what do you want it to do differently? Like, do you need a $3,500 AR or do you just need a third $800 AR? What, just arbitrary garbage here. Like, what do you need it to do and why? Like, I will tell you, buy everything you can, because it's just great. Buy stuff, because why not support everybody? But you cannot, in today's cycle of where we're at, like, you can throw a rock anywhere on this floor and hit a good, reputable manufacturer.
Yeah, sure.
And it's the same 3 shops that are making stuff for everybody else outside of a couple.
Yeah, please louder for the people in the back.
Like
the
they
white label stuff.
Oh, dude.
I have good friends that do this.
The OEM is real.
Yeah, I mean, they have to. That these companies have to do
it's
that.
The only way to survive.
With materials acquisition, with labor, right? Just with access to things, just bandwidth.
Yeah.
Like, they have to do this, but that's a big part that I don't think people understand. Like, they're talking shit about a company that actually made the barrel that's in your gun that says something else stamped on it.
Yeah, or the bolt carrier group or whatever it is. Like, yeah, man, like, even pistol barrels were crazy for a couple of years. Everybody had we had these highly tuned, finely accurate Glock barrels. I'm like, oh God, here it comes. I'm like, I know the shop that made barrels for 10 of you dudes.
Right.
And on a Wednesday, they ran your barrels. And on a Thursday, they pulled stock from the same shelf and ran your barrels. On a Friday, they did so-and-so's barrels.
Yeah.
Just stop talking.
Yeah, why is that such a big deal? What I mean by that is like, why does it have to be a proprietary barrel, blah, blah, blah? I asked this question the other day of somebody else. I'm just curious what your answer is.
Ego.
It's so stupid.
It's like, we have to have this special barrel. I'm like, hey, man, 90% of the market can't outshoot the factory barrel anyways that is in that gun. Like, that consumer, while I love my accessories and my toys, don't get me wrong, I'm like, just shoot the other barrel. Instead of buying a $200 barrel, buy another $200 in ammo.
Yeah.
And go be better.
Yeah, go dent primers, as Joe would say. Right?
Yeah, it's like, what do you need this gun to do? Like it's a polymer striker fired whatever, dude. Like, realistically, you'll probably be, if ever, in 10 million years of your life, 10 yards and in, probably like cool. The gun shoots a 4-inch group at 10 yards. You're good. You win.
Yep.
Or you do at this point. Like, do I need this? No. Do I want it? Yes.
Yeah.
Needs versus wants.
So with all that, and again, we're at SHOT Show, and you sort of just alluded to the fact that you've been part of projects out there on the floor.
Yeah.
How many new products out there have your hands on them somewhere?
There's at least 2 minimum right now that are on this floor today, and there's another company that has 3 or 4 things with some design changes that I just, in conversation over cigars and bourbon, right, with staff, like, and what's going to happen, right? You're talking to dudes about things they're going to implement.
Okay.
Right? Cool. You're like, man, that's awesome. I'm glad you guys did this. I am glad they came to light. I am glad they're going to work for people. This is not something like, that was mine, you owe me money. I'm like, hey, man, does it help some dudes? Great. That's all I care about. Good. Good.
And then on occasion, on the business end, there's maybe a more...
And something along the lines comes later.
So going back to the over bourbon cigars in the back of the napkin stuff.
Fact.
Right? Versus, and that's a friendly, right, business conversation.
Yes.
Business conversation, but that is a conversation. Yes. That is not a business deal.
Correct.
And so in my being around this for a little bit for a little bit of time and talking to a lot of people, somehow people think that what I just described is a business deal.
No.
And they do get butthurt, and then it turns into this massive thing, which everybody forgets about in a week, but it turns into this massive thing. And I wonder how you see the industry going right now in terms of people being a little bit more professional, a little bit more cautious about that kind of stuff. Because as fast as it's moving, you can understand how that stuff goes. And it's all about, like, how do I get mine?
Right.
So I don't know. What are you seeing out there? Like, particularly at this year's SHOT Show.
So, like, I've talked about this with other people in the past, like on, live streams and whatever. Like, this is the year of lights, lasers, optics, accessories, right? This is the year for that.
That wasn't last year?
No.
Oh.
No. Last year was something even more stupid. This year, it's just become kind of the same thing again. Like, who can do what next, right?
Okay.
Like, it's like we've all got a dot now that has multiple reticles. Oh, good job. Congratulations.
Right.
Like, stop it. It's totally irrelevant. Tribalism to a point, where everybody's just kind of on the same bandwidth and bandwagon based off everybody wants, but it's silly. When I tell people about these things, I'm like, look, there are times and places where you just have to give to get. Like you're going to throw something out there in a meeting or a social setting with these cats, and you're going to see it in 2 years, dude. But you're not original. Like if you think you have an original thought, somebody else has already had that original thought in this space. So it's like, sure, because company A has released optics X with reticle A again. You're like, yeah, I know where that came from. That's good. I'm glad. And you go talk to those dudes and like, oh, we'll send you one. I'm like, I don't need one, man. Like, I don't care about it, but I'm glad it's being implemented. And I'm glad you guys actually pay attention to this. And and congratulations, that's in your product catalog, man. I hope that's awesome. And I'm glad it's going to make you guys money. Because even negotiating these kind of things, right, like royalties or whatever, like,
is it even worth it?
No, a lot of times it is not.
I think that's a good question.
Unless you really are knocking something out of the park, like it's the $1 million golden baby. Like you're going to get $1 a product, and they're going to sell 10 million of these things. Like, stop it.
Who's doing that though? You know, like
bingo.
Who's doing that?
Bingo.
And that's the thing. So I look out there. You know, you go out there again, SHOT Show. So there's for relevance, but you go out there on the floor, and it's the same. You mentioned it's the same 4 companies are making those slides or those bolts or
whatever it is,
those comps or whatever for 10 other companies or 50 other companies.
OEM is how people survive in this industry, right? Like OEMing is a real thing. Well, it's funny because like I've been getting messages all day because of a product that was launched on the show floor, you know, a couple of days ago in some video, and now currently it's on the floor, and I've been getting all this stuff from guys. Yeah, you know, like I'm getting named and added on with like 8 patents. Right now because of a product that I was called in on a year ago, literally in like June of something. The guys are like, hey man, we want to do this. I'm like, cool, let's do it. I'm like, sure, no problem. You sit down, there's a whiteboard, there's design guys, there's engineers, there's all these guys who are like the important smart brains. Like you can throw the concept at them, they're like, we can do that.
Right.
Like, they're the dudes. Yeah. They're the dudes you want to be your friends, right?
So funny.
They're the dudes that are getting like real money because they're the big brain. You're the guy who's just throwing stuff out there that you want, right? You're the idea dude. Like you're not that special, but you're special, right? Because you have a different perspective.
You have an insight. Yeah.
That's it, right? And that's all it is. Like I'm happy the product is out. I know where the product is going to be going over the years. I was approached by a couple of people that I worked with at different companies years ago that were like, hey man, 12 years ago, you pitched this. They didn't listen. Good on you. I'm like, we're here now, but we're 12 years later, right? But things have caught up. And it's like, it's self-gratifying internally to see, right? Or to hear it from those people, right? Or again, right, validation from dudes that were bigger brains at bigger companies. Are like, man, that is awesome. We're glad this finally happened. And like, we're going to steal things and make a different version. I'm like, steal it all day long. I don't care. But I'm not going to get rich off of it, right? It's not the thing that's going to set me up for my retirement. You know, there'll be royalties, there'll be a few other things, and it's like, sweet. I'm just glad it's out there because you get to see something that you've really done from a ground up level. You've seen it develop, you've seen it grow. It's like having your son or your daughter do well in sports or whatever else. Like that's mine, but it's cool to see, right? And that's the fun part of it at times. I'll never get rich doing it.
Yeah, so I think that is what I get from you, man. And just kind of looking at the bigger picture is that you're doing this for the love of it.
Yeah.
Right? There is a way to make some money doing this. Yeah. There's probably a right way and a wrong way and somewhere in between. And you've hit it like probably in many, many different ways. You've already described how, you know, you had some challenges or, you know,
there's plenty more. There's a lot more, right?
But it is for the love of the game versus, and that being the why. Yeah. And yes, you can love it and make money. Both can be true at the same time.
Sure.
But if you cut the love piece out and you're just chasing the dollars, I think that's kind of what's driving things. And again, like it makes perfect sense. I've been in business a long time, so I get how that works. Like
you can lose your insight into why you're still doing something, right? You can lose that love or the passion for it. Like I'm the first guy to admit, like I am grumpy and I am angry, and there's a lot of this industry that I hate, for a lot of reasons. But the other part of it is that there's still that 10% left, right, or 20% left that it makes it worth. That you go, man, that felt good to wake up today and go, like, yeah, man, peers in this space, dudes that you have known, like, hey, man, that was a good job. And that's the part when you wake up again and you get to hear that, or you get to see that when you get the handshake from those guys on the floor. They're like, that was solid. And you're like, now it makes it 20%, right? Because you're kind of like, yeah, that was awesome. but it's the real part of it, right? And again, like what people don't see is the ugly side and the pretty side, right? There's both sides to it all, and why we still do this or why some do it.
Who's doing a great job right now? And I know
manufacturing or like dude wise?
That's a big question. Now you hit on a couple of really good dudes from the get go, but I mean like from like soup to nuts on the industry side specific to product, and it could be anything. It could be optics, it could be rifles, it could be triggers, whatever. Who's doing a really good job just in general of everything from what, in your opinion, from doing the right things through R&D to actually testing to dropping it to getting it to consumer? I mean, I know it's a very big question.
It's broad, right? It's broad.
But I'm curious, and like I like the way these guys. I really like the way these guys are operating or are beginning to operate. I mean, is there insight you can give me? Because I'm interested in just your opinion.
I mean, there's a few, right? And obviously without my favoritism involved, right? Because I still currently work with some good companies.
I'm not asking that. Sure. Yeah, I think you can compliment somebody.
Sure. Oh yeah, right? Absolutely you can, right? You can tell somebody that's a nice shirt, right? Without it being a thing.
Yeah, I mean, you can work for Glock and like what, FN's doing, right? With something, 100%,
right? So, I like what Palmetto State Armory is doing.
Okay.
Palmetto State, and there's a little bit of bias in there because of some things that have happened recently with them and some product development, but like those cats are the people that want to put guns in everybody's hands of Americans.
That's the mission.
That is the mission. Arm the populace, get them involved, make it happen. Like for love or hate, right? The other dude is T-Rex. Lucas, for people who love or hate him, has done an amazing job. Like, and I have both feelings about the cat, right? Like, I'm like, oh God, shut up, kid, whatever. But like that dude has done more to energize the young populace that will be the next people for our 2A gun, whatever rights, stand up for this country. That kid has made an army. And he is smart about it, and he is good about it. Love it or hate him, gaslight it, it doesn't matter. And I can respect that out of him because he has done an amazing job for being the homeschooled, whatever it is he is, dude. And he's made mistakes along the way, right? We all have. But that cat, like product aside, I don't care about, but it's just what he has done to energize that segment of the 20-something, 18-something, video game playing kids. To the 45-year-old adult, whatever.
Still playing video games.
Yeah, right. Like in their mom's basement doing things. But that kid has done an amazing job. Like, and I respect that out of him. And I respect his message to that populace and to those people. Like I will give him full props on that 100%. Palmetto State is part of that, right? They've done an amazing job. Other companies that have done really, really well. Again, right, we have all these dot manufacturers, all these optics places. Like, we get where they're all coming from. There's like a Chinesium, We understand it. It's kind of where we are. But there are companies that are leading, that are pushing other companies. Like love them or hate them, Hollow Sun. Yeah. Right? Like, love them or hate them. Do your politics. I don't care. Like, that's you, bro. You do you while you're typing away on your Mac iBook, whatever it is that you have that was made somewhere else.
It's a slippery slope, right?
Yeah, like you can be this, but this money goes to the PLA. I'm like, I don't know.
Your Toyota truck sitting in the parking lot,
right? Exactly. Save your politics, do your thing. I get it. We all are right to it. But they have driven and they have pushed other optics manufacturers to catch up. That's a real thing. Like, be better, do reticle design changes, do all these things. Like, HoloSun has crushed it, and they're still driving things. And that's made Trigicon do things differently, or it's made so-and-so do things differently. Solid across the board. All these manufacturers are good. Vortex is one that I watch. Like I've done some things for those cats over the years, and they make amazing products. They've done some really good contract items. Like Vortex is a crew to watch here in the coming months. As far as some other manufacturers go, I could care less. They could be upside down in a ditch on fire filled with cholera, like water. Like, I could care less about them. Like, I hate you just for other reasons, but I hate you, kind of deal. But like the companies to watch, I feel like people should pay more attention to the small guys. They are the ones that are driving innovation. They are the ones that are willing to look outside the box and not be pigeonholed. They are the ones that are like, we could do this. We should do this instead.
Oh, they're doing it.
Oh, they are all over the country, right? And I tell dudes, I could find the small guy, because that small guy in 3 years will be the dude with a 40 by 40 booth instead of sharing a 5 by 5 with some of their buddies in the industry.
And hopefully still the same dudes.
That's what you hope for, right?
Yeah.
Like you hope they maintain the same way, the same level, and they remember that and they respect that.
I'll just break this down real quick. I love how you pulled that all together, man. I don't, in a way, like that was sort of shocking, but not. I guess I sort of expected this out of you. I guess that's what I'm saying. I expected an answer like that. But let me run back through it for a second, because Palmetto State, right?
Yeah.
It's not, you didn't talk about the product.
No.
You talked about the mission.
Yeah.
Right? I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, let them work out the product and let the consumer decide,
That's
right?
it.
But if you keep doing this and you keep that as your focus, and you listen to the consumer that you're selling that, that product to, they're going to tell you, and
yes.
they've been around long enough, they'll make adjustments.
Yes.
The other one you mentioned was Lucas. Now, I don't know Lucas, I've never met him, but right when I sort of entered the space, it came up, he came up right away.
Sure.
And for me, it was very odd. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
But a lot of it was the hate that he was getting from all the other guys.
Yeah.
Right? From a lot of people.
Sure.
But also I'm just watching, like, this dude from a business perspective
crushes it.
He's insane.
Crushes it.
Right? I'm just looking at it going, where is this? I've never even seen the game Call of Duty played on. I've never even seen it on a TV.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not a video game guy.
I'm not. I just haven't ever been. I've said this before. I've not played it. I've literally never even seen it on somebody's
like
television.
when I had an Atari when I was 8.
Yeah, same.
Like I don't care. Like give me Pac-Man. Like I'll play that. I don't care about the rest.
Okay, I'm an old guy, right?
Yeah.
But the point of that is I really studied that to find out, like, what was he doing, and the entire company, but
sure,
him as the guy at the front. And yes, I think he's owned up to his mistakes.
Sure.
In a couple of different ways. And I think some of it is a little bit public and kind of type of some of the behaviors that he's exhibiting now. You're seeing in action.
It's called maturity.
That he's fucking...
It's growing and it's being mature.
It's all of those things, right?
Yes.
And everybody has room for that at some level, I think, probably. The other part is I have talked to some individuals that he's reached out to, sat down, and listened to the feedback. Like, where guys have told him to his face, like, hey, bro, I don't like what you said, and I'm not sure I like you or not.
Yeah.
As a result, this pissed me off, and you shouldn't have said that. And with the response of, like, hey, man, I'm sorry, I guess I didn't realize, right? And so just having that conversation in and of itself. So it's interesting you pulled that one up, because when I look at that one, I look at him initially. I was looking at him as something different, and then there's another word I will use, but I will use it for Holliston because I believe they're the one.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, and when you look at it, like all the kids that he's pulled into this, and the things that are happening, like even in like the USPSA world, and the younger kids that are joining it and disrupting the shit out of that right now. Right?
It's funny.
It is.
I laugh.
Yeah, I mean, that whole organization has a lot of fucking work to do. But right.
There's a few things.
But moving on to Holliston, like that one, to me, based on what you said, that is exactly the same thing I said when they came out. I wasn't super public about it because, again, who am I?
Right.
I don't talk about guns very much. I mean, I've said this before. Like, I'm not really a gun guy. I'm a freedom guy.
Yeah.
And freedom equals this end of it. So I'm into it, but not in the same way a lot of people are, that a lot of people might expect. But that said, going back to Holliston, they came in and they made everybody go,
wow.
Yeah, what the fuck am I doing?
What just hit us?
I can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting everybody to accept it and rest on our laurels. Yeah. And that I was, for that, like, again, say what you want to say about politics and where materials and things are coming from. But the bottom line, I also happen to know there's probably, well, let's just say I have a strong inclination that some of these companies that are writing the American-made, all of this stuff,
they're not being honest.
They're not being entirely honest. So, again, slippery slope as you type away your angry texts and angry stuff in the comment section on your iPhone.
If people really knew that there's only 3 places, like right now currently, that make emitters for red dots. 3. People are like, I'm like, you would not really like it if you found out if these companies were honest with you where their products came from.
Or the glass that's going into their optics.
Or things like
just material, all that stuff.
There's a lot of companies that people toe that line about. Like, Yeah, man. I remember when all their stuff was being made in the Eastern European countries, being OEM for them. Like, what? I'm like, yeah, man. There's lineage here, right? And this, pick your fight, man. Like, what is your fight worth to you, and what does it really mean to you?
Yeah, and going back to the fighting, and the fight in a good way, as it relates to like PSA, but also the smaller companies that are not quietly, because they're figured out how to do this in a way in terms of being very public and open about it, but they are doing some pretty cool things, and they are like they're also starting to chase the government contracts a little bit, and they're winning some.
They are,
and maybe the bigger guys, and you mentioned one of them earlier. Those kind of companies that have always traditionally had the ability to win these contracts for a lot of reasons. And so the smaller guy, the little guy, starting to move in, and that's despite the challenges that they have that those bigger companies are creating for them on purpose, right, to get there. And I actually sat down with a guy the other day, Gabe Cabrera from Cobalt Guns, and we were talking about some of the things that are going on there.
Good dudes over there.
Yeah, very good dudes, and fighting through a lot of things to get done what needs to get done. I am a fan of Cobalt and the people there.
Sure.
I do have relationships there, and I've been pretty public about that.
Like Mikey's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, Mikey Perez.
Like Mikey is a good friend. Like I just saw Mikey the other night. Like I almost knocked him over at the bar, running into him. Like I love Mike to death. He's a great human being, got a good brain on him. Like it's good to see what he's doing for those guys.
I agree, especially coming from where he's come from and the things that he knows.
Yeah, and I work for those guys currently, right? Like and I work for the old company he worked for, but we are friends.
Yep.
Right. And you can congratulate your friends on their success. And regardless of who's signing your checks.
But that's the other thing. So think about that if you're a consumer out there and you're looking at the bigger, badder company or whatever, and these guys have always done this, and they're always going to turn out the $4,000 rifle that's probably a $1,500 rifle, whatever, that kind of thing. And going back to it being incestuous, this can also be a good thing.
Yes.
Because you're taking that innovation and you're moving it around. And at the same time, going back to the little guy, what I saw on the floor this year is the first time I've seen this, like in this industry. Granted, it's only my second SHOT Show, but there's a booth down there that has 4 smaller companies that teamed up to do a very big booth. I'll call it out. CNH is down there right now. Agency, Cloud, and
there's somebody else there. I can't remember who it is.
These guys are going to be so mad at me.
Genesis with the shotguns, right? Like Genesis.
Thank you.
Well, and that's the thing. Like I've been a part of the agency team for years, right? I have worked with those guys. Mikey's a great dude. Like I found them one of their gunsmiths when they needed one. Like I made industry calls. Like, hey man, so you've got this guy. He's willing to move. He's a great gunsmith. He'll be awesome for you guys. Like, it's awesome. Like Mike has been a buddy of mine for years. I've worked with those cats for a long time, shooting guns, do whatever. Like great human. Like CNH Buck is a character.
Yeah.
Like they released the 2 to 12. They released the 2 to 12 today, which was one of the products that I had my hand in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
I spent about half an hour with him yesterday. I'd never met him before.
He's a character, man. Character is it. Like, and like love him or hate him again. But like when he called me and he's like, "Hey man, I want to do something. Like, what is the deal?" I'm like, "This is what the industry needs right now. We need this optic for this reason to do this." He's like, "All right, let's build it. Let's build it." I'm like, okay, why not? So he sends me the one after the fact, and I get it in my hand. I do some talk about it, blah blah blah. And I was like trying to guess what company it is. It's just kind of funny, hysterical. Nobody ever expected it. We sat down this morning, did like a little quick Instagram live in a booth talking about the optic, and the final production. I'm like, yeah, man, it's cool. It's an option in the market. Buy it, don't.
Right.
Whatever. If it's not for you, don't buy it.
Again, but the same thing you said, going back to Holliston for just a second, that guys like that are coming in and they're like, I don't care what you're doing over there. I'm doing this.
Look what they've done with like the night vision, the thermal, the new little pistol thingy, AEMS overlay deal. All of it. I'm like, they're going to drive people to do better.
Yeah.
Guys are like, well, if they can do it, we can do it. Like, we can do the technology. Right?
Go ahead.
Have at it, man. Right. Please do it, because I would love for you to innovate some shit.
Be remarkable.
Yes, that you've been sitting on your ass about for years because you just don't want to do anything differently.
Right.
Because you're comfortable where you're at.
Well, the worst, or not the worst, but the thing that I see happening is, again, going back to the building something to solve a problem that doesn't exist. You see some of these bigger companies doing that. And I'm
Let's just build it because it's cool and we want it.
Yeah. Yeah. We have money to spend. We need shot shows, and
Sure.
in 9 months we have to have something
Nobody
new to
needs
release.
shot show.
Right.
Nobody needs
I'm
a
glad
show.
you said that.
Nobody needs a show.
That was another big part
we
of
can
it.
talk about it. Sorry, I'll just jump ahead later.
No. I'm not saying I hate shot. So here's the thing. People bag on it, right? And there's a lot of reasons probably for doing that. Yeah. I've been probably guilty of talking ill about some of the things.
Sure.
Shit's in every industry, whatever.
It doesn't matter what it is.
But part of it is, like, I would not have built the relationships that I have without coming here.
Right.
And talking to people and having those conversations and, building those relationships and making those introductions. What's interesting is the people I hear that really talk the most shit about it, like, and I mean that in a negative, not like a sarcastic kind of way, right? Are people that are sitting on the sidelines or expecting something when they come here to fall into their lap, or that if I go have this conversation at this booth, this is going to turn into something. You know what? That is not how this works at all. And they want to return on their investment of that time, when that is not where any of this stuff happened for me. I bumped into guys in the elevator and started a conversation, right? We just happen to be in the same place at the same time. So going back to, we don't need SHOT Show. You're right. We don't. We just need...
That was proven during the COVID era.
Right.
When we were all dying from whatever it was,
I think everybody loves to just be in the same room. Yes. Cool people like to be in the same room together.
Like to be able to see our buddies we only see once a year.
That's it.
It's the central bar, right, so to speak, right? For all of us to meet up, hang out, BS, catch up outside of the emails, the phone calls, whatever it is. Like, do you think company A needs $1.5 million booth space and 500 employees here? It's like
crazy.
Do you think Glock needs another $850,000 party?
Nope.
Not at all.
Right. Why?
It's a write-off.
It's a write-off.
Yeah. Tax time.
I mean, you just mentioned the one. I mean, SIG's gone.
Yeah.
And they're not coming back.
Do they need to?
Not with 60% of the market share, they don't. Right?
Whatever it is. What do they need to do? Nothing.
Yeah. Why do they need to spend $1.5 million on a booth or whatever?
Yeah. Well, why would they? Why should they? They don't have to.
They don't have to.
No,
so, like, even there, you could be mad that they're not here to meet the customer in the space or whatever else. They have their reasons for not being here. But until you're a customer, if you're one of those people that's mad about it, well, then tell them.
Yeah.
With your pocketbook.
And I am the first one to admit I hate SIG.
Okay.
I hate them with a passion.
I can't.
And I have some really good buddies there, like that are awesome dudes, but I hate SIG. I hate them.
All right,
but that's okay. But I have like older SIGs that I love, right? An old 210, some 226s, like old classic SIG guns. The rest of it, I could care less.
Yeah.
I could care less.
I got you. Like I said, everybody has their thing.
Bingo.
We could put 10 guys over there.
And we'll all have the same discussion. It doesn't matter. Like, you don't like A, I don't like B. Cool, but we like C.
Perfectly
it doesn't
fine.
Matter.
And we like hanging out with one another, which is the more important thing.
That's it.
Which is what this thing is.
Yeah.
Look, just, kind of wrapping up here.
I've got a lot more we could talk about. Like, how much longer do you want to do this?
I'm sure you do.
We could order pizza and stay here all night.
I know.
I'm good.
And I could literally do that with you, and stay here for hours. There are so many things to break into, and and not cutting it short, but I think I guess if I'm looking at like the wisdom, of Steve and what he may be able to provide, or what could he leave sort of this audience with, which is, maybe a different audience than has heard from you before. Like, what do you see the future? Like again, you don't have a crystal ball, but what do you see as like the future of where this thing is going? You already kind of mentioned these are companies you might want to look out for, but specifically the reasons why you're looking at them. Like, where do you see this thing going? Where are we next year, and where are we in 5 years?
We are fragile.
Okay.
This industry is fragile. It is very delicate. That's the part people don't like to talk about with it. Like, they think it's this huge powerhouse. It is one pen stroke away, right from whatever it is to being like neutered. It would take one more crisis, right, in manufacturing to hurt a lot of the big companies again, right? Like, a lot of things could be hurt fast. It is a very delicate, fragile balance. This industry is also 20 years behind automotive, right? 20 years behind new medical technology. Like, we are very far behind because it's what we've always done.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Just refusal for
Refusal
change.
a lot of time, change. I mean, and that's just a small part, right? It's not the big overall glowing part of it, but it is a very small part. This industry is very fragile right now. We are in a delicate balance, I feel. There's a lot of resources joining together because they've realized it's all about making money right now, and how can A help B better?
When you say resources, what do you mean?
As far as like manufacturers,
Okay.
right? Companies, metal, everything that would go
Materials.
through materials purchasing, like the nylon industry is hurting right now. Like nylon is a sore spot the past couple of years for a lot of places. Like, we're waiting on materials. We can't get this. We can't get this. Well, yeah, like this is a whole slew of things that's a trickle down effect across the board of like one little thing sets off the next snowball. And it's not that like it's an overall doom and gloom.
Doom and gloom,
Oh my
right.
God,
I
it's
hear you.
horrible. But like when you look at things and it's like this could set things back a year or so or whatever. And it's just the reality of where we are right now. Like the economy's not that great. This is not that great, right? Everybody's like posturing. Right?
Yep, I get that.
And it's like a social media thing, right? It's not real. There's reality and there's perception.
Yeah, we have elections and shit coming.
Elections is coming up, so you know what's going to happen. Ammo's going to skyrocket. Magazines, people are going to be preparing for whatever
It's
the worst.
same thing that happens every time.
Cycle, right? I've lived through this from the assault weapons ban through every election cycle. Man, it's like cool story, man. It's great, whatever. But there's a lot of sides to the industry that people won't talk about, right? There's just a lot of portions and pieces of this that they will not be willing to dive into. And I have, and I love doing that part. And I like telling people, like, man, that there are parts of this that are ugly. There are parts of it that are demon filled. That there's other parts of it that are good. There's a lot of it that you put on yourself that hurts you. And that's the hard part that people don't see behind the scenes with this world.
How do we, or I mean, like the collective we, and again, not everybody, when I say we, is going to be on board with this, but how do we navigate it?
Stop the tribalism, stop the bullshit infighting. Everybody's got the same common goal. While there are voices currently that are creating separation of a lot of stuff, there's a lot of things that are happening right now, and I get it, and I understand it, and I see that out of some really good dudes that and there's things that should be happening. I feel sometimes the approaches are a little off, but the people need to look out for their own. Right. It's kind of like anything else in the world. Like, you need to check on your people. You need to understand what's going on. You need to do these things. Like, how can you help them and help the others?
So how, from the business to consumer end, how do you do that?
Support the local companies,
okay.
Right? Support your local gun shop, support the small manufacturers. Like, I can buy ammo from like several big industry companies that are buddies. Like, I buy about a pallet a year. Like, I'm like, there's little quote unquote small manufacturers, dudes that like are surviving off this. I'm like, hey man, I'll go buy a case of ammo from X or Y or Z just because to support those people. Or instead of buying something online cheaper than what the box store or storefront that your local gun shop has, like, man, go support them, because like the big box stores and everybody else will be there, but your little dude may not. Like, there are states where things have been implemented and enacted in laws and regulations and whatever stupid stuff. So like, I know that like 20 some stores have closed gun shops over the years, like mom and pop places that slaved away for years. Like, you need to support those people. Spend the extra $7 on a box of ammo once in a while when you're in their store bugging their employees about the latest, greatest gun at the counter that you're never going to buy, and you're going to go look for it on Gun Broker or wherever else. Like, stop being that asshole. Like, legitimately step up, spend the extra $7, $20 on something, and support that shop that has been there, that you have wasted their time and their energy on, and just stop being that dude or dudette or whatever. Like, go support that shop, go buy something. I don't need to. I still do it to this day, right? Like, I'm going to go to my local shop. I'll buy XY ammo there. Oh, you've got this optic. Like without it being an ego thing, I could call that company and they would send it to me if I really wanted it.
Sure.
But no, I just was in my local fun shop and they had a sale on some optics. I'm like, I want both of those. Like I will pay the money for those just to support them.
That means something to them too.
And keep them going.
Yeah.
Does it matter? Yeah, it probably does. Does it matter in the overall big scheme of things to them that I'm just a customer? Sure, what have you. But stop being that person. Like, stop being a lazy ass. Go to that shop. Go buy something for them instead of buying it from some online retailer Amazon site and wanting like that thing there because I saved $12 with my Prime account.
Yeah, guess what? Because if you don't and that shop goes away, guess what? The price on that shit at the other goes right up $7 or $12
bucks.
Man.
Right up next to the roof.
Yeah, because they can.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Go support those people. Like they're the ones that matter.
I think it's really good advice. I mean, I'm a small business owner myself in a place where it's really tough to survive as a small owner anyway, or small business owner anyway. I wonder, again, I think you kick that off with like even the small shops supporting the smaller companies, gun companies, rifle companies, distribution, whatever that they're doing. I mean, I see a lot of people out there doing that or attempting to do that, working closely together with people that are literally in their own town if they can or whatever. Because again, going back, like what's the products the products are not that different.
No.
Right?
It's the flavor, it's the color, it's what you want.
And I get that the big companies have the ability to market the thing that people seemingly want, but if that's all you're offering them as an option, that's what they're going to get. Yeah. So I think that's solid advice. What advice you got for me?
Keep doing what you're doing, man. It's awesome. Like I am just like we talked earlier. Like I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be on this podcast. This is like, I am so nervous. Like I've been on a million of them. I'm like, but this is big time, right? This is like, my God, I am so here. Fun. Like this is so like, weird to hear this dude has had like some of the most amazing dudes like in the industry on his show. And I'm like, oh, here we go. This could be bad. I better get another drink before I get on the show or something. Like, I don't even know at this point, right? Like, but no, like I love the message, man. I love the variety. It's not just the one thing, right? Like I could sit here with you for 7 more hours and we could just talk about life, right? Like important shit, not gun industry stuff, because it's irrelevant. This industry is like every other industry and it's not that important. Dudes try to make it more important than it is. It's just another job. And it's just another space you live and work in, man. It's not you. It doesn't define you. If you let it define you, you're fucking wrong. Mm-hmm. Like you are absolutely wrong at this point. Like if this is the only thing you can hang your head on, like you are wrong. Yep. And for some of us, it's too late, right? In that space, but there's a lot of dudes. But like I tell guys, like this is just find something else to divert your time into, because this is not just it. Like you will burn bridges, you will waste birthdays, holidays, funerals, weddings if you let this consume you. Like the things in life that matter, you will lose. And they will either walk from you, divorce you, do whatever. It doesn't matter. But like sooner or later, it will consume you if you let it, like anything else will. Don't let it. Just take it for what it is. Have fun with it. Do the best you can, right? And that's what I tell guys. But like for you, man, like when I look at things and what you do versus all the other, podcasts and all that, I'm like, the dude's got an angle, right? There's an edge, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate the honesty that comes from it and the ability to let us say and talk about things. And that I appreciate. And that's what separates you from a lot of the others. Like, definitely separates you. And I love it. And I'm just like, man, just keep doing what you do.
Appreciate that.
It's outstanding. And like I said, I appreciate being here. It really is. And I love the guys you had on.
Thank you, man. I mean, it means a ton. I mean, oftentimes I wonder how much of the stuff reaches people, and
more
the impact. But I come here and I get to talk with folks, and I do get that feedback, and it means it does mean a lot. Awesome. And sometimes I can overdo the thank yous because I don't deal well with that stuff. I just it's for whatever reason I'm weird about it. So, but that said, that the letting the thing consume you, and what's interesting is defining what the thing is. And so when I look at this and I look how we got put together, guns didn't put me together with Steve Fisher. There's a thing with guns that that was involved in this, but it wasn't guns, it was humans. Yeah. And I can literally go back and map out. One of these days I'm going to do this. I was just joking with Cece today after we had this. We had another interview this morning about maybe one day we'll do like an alumni meetup, like where everybody that was on
that'd be awesome. The round table, right? Like we just all round table.
How badass would that be?
God, that'd be awesome.
When we just sit around and we track the whole thing and we go like in the order and how I connected with people, because I could put up on the wall like a huge flow chart of how the connection points got made, and it all started with other humans, right? And typically the connection goes with, yeah, you should talk to this guy because he's a really good dude. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, if that guy's a good dude and you say he's a good dude, then I need to talk to that guy or whatever. And that is, so this show wouldn't be what it is. And I certainly wouldn't be where I am without dudes like you. So I appreciate you.
Like I said, man, I'm just like, I'm here, like, but I love everything you guys are doing. Like, that's the appreciation part, right? You're able to put all these dudes together who are like word of mouth, right? Like, we all know each other. We all have a mutual respect for each other. And like, hey, man, he's a good dude. You should go on this or whatever. Like, yeah, like when I got the message, I was like, oh man, do I really want to do this? Like, this could go so good, but so wrong at some point. Like, but that's just it, right? Like those people have a tendency to be in that circle, and that's telling. That is telling for a lot of us.
Well, speaking of circles, we both got to get out of here because there's a very special circle that's happening here.
We got to get there a little bit and start doing that thing.
Yeah, we got to move over there and see those other dudes. That'd a lot of those other dudes that are in that circle. I don't know how I made it in, but we got to sign off. So again, Steve, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. This was such a pleasure when I saw you downstairs the first night. I was like, oh my God, that's the dude. You're way fucking bigger than I thought you were. Like, and just big as life in a lot of ways. And any opportunity in the future that I could get to sit down with you and have these kind of conversations, I will.
I'd love it, man.
You got my phone number. Please call me. If there's any way I can support you,
same here
in any of those ways. But maybe we can do this again sometime, whether it's alumni
or some other way. I'd love it. I'd love to do it.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
You too.